Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to continue this week's theme of old versus new, checking out how bands have evolved over the course of their career. Yesterday, we checked out Mastodon's Mother Puncher, and today we're going to be looking at a newer track from them called Toe to Toes. We're going to do a little bit of analysis on the song itself before moving into some comparing and contrasting with their older work. All right, let's see what they're bringing to the table today. Drastic shift. Starting with a nice 6/8 feel. Very wide layered vocals, layered guitars, lots of production value. Ooh, that little snare thing. Right, I think that was bass kicks. Work on off beats. Wow, into like a rock 4/4. Very straight. Keeping a lot of that atmosphere though. Right back to that 6/8. So that's kind of like the chorus there. And they started the song with it, which is a very modern pop idea. Really moving through this too. 2 minutes in, and we've already been through the chorus twice and in our second verse. Keeping this drive with that nice guitar run and then the drums behind it. So much energy in that drum bit. I like that ritardondo there. I think that's the smoothest transition I've heard from them in either of these songs. Almost sounds like we got a tambourine in there. Solo number 2. All right. Interesting ending given all of the energy and drive there. I saw there was a Toe to Toes instrumental, and it does not seem like a song that would be very strong as an instrumental. Maybe that's just me. Um, it doesn't carry that weight in the instruments as much. It feels like a song that very much needs its vocal hook to keep it going. I think there's just too much repetition in the instrumental stuff, but maybe it was just some things that I missed, some more nuanced items, and that would be somewhere where the instrumental can shine some light. So that might not be something too bad to look into. Maybe after I make this video, I'll go check that out. So yeah, let's look at Toe to Toes on its own for a bit. I'm going to try my best not to compare it to yesterday's Mother Puncher during this analysis, and then we'll get into some compare and contrast after that. So the first thing is sort of what this song reminds me of, how it applies to things that I've heard before. Interestingly, I get a very strong Seether Shinedown kind of feel from the song, especially in the verses. I don't know if it's that hard, like a harder acoustic rock sound that they're utilizing, which Seether and Shinedown both have used a lot. It could be the way that he sings. He has a little bit of rasp on his vocals. They also seem to be very passionate and personal, very heartfelt in his delivery, which is something that those other bands I attribute to them as well. But it does not give me any sort of metal vibes. And the other thing that really sticks out to me sonically is the production. There is a lot of work that goes into the engineering on this. And what really put me in the mindset to listen to some of that stuff is the first section we went into, the chorus, I think. And we have double tracked, maybe triple tracked vocals, really layered in there. And we have these clean, raspy vocals, and then we have like I don't know, like a whispered scream. You get a little bit of that white noise texture in the whisper underneath it. And it kind of sounds a bit harsher, but it's also more of a palatable sound. It's a really interesting choice. Almost has a bit of a haunting quality to it. But that idea right there, we kick-started with this very strong production quality, and it really put me in the mindset to start listening to things like that. And I started to looking at how the instruments were panned, how they were mixed, and it is a very, very clean mix. Every instrument is really given its room to shine and to showcase itself. We have some panning on the guitars to separate them. Vocals and drums are straightforward. The drums are given a lot of room in the mix to showcase their skill, and of course the drummer is extremely skilled, always throwing in these really cool lines and drum fills in places. And the mix is it is a very palatable modern mix, and I love it. I love a clean mix, and they went all out on this. It's very well done. Compositionally, though, this sounds to me like a fairly standard rock song. There's a little bit of oddities to the song composition. We open up with the chorus, I think. It gets repeated again at least once. So I'm going to attribute it to being a type of chorus, maybe not a standard chorus. But we start out with an extended chorus. It's two repetitions. Well, one repetition. It's the chord part, and then we hear it again with different words. And it's interesting to note that we are starting the song with a chorus. That's a very modern idea these days. I don't know exactly where it comes from, but there's a lot of ideas in modern media that when you create something, you need to grab people immediately. A good trend of this is if you notice trailers. Movie trailers for modern movies, modern movie trailers, stuff coming out in the past 6 or 8 months, I would say. is where I've really noticed this trend, is that you will see a lot of action in the first 3 seconds, and then it'll say the trailer's coming up, and then play the proper minute and a half trailer for the film, because they really got to get you hooked in. Otherwise, you're going to ignore it. If it's done as a YouTube ad, you're going to skip it. They got to hook you in those first 5 seconds. So this is something that music's been doing for a while. A lot of pop tracks, and even some rock tracks, will start with the chorus nowadays, and really get you in on the hook. So it's interesting to see Mastodon employ that. I'm not sure if they went for that because of a way to draw you in. Maybe this was their first album where they went softer, and they wanted that raspy vocal area and the harder part of the song to come in before they brought it down, and try to grab older listeners in at the beginning. I don't know what the reason for it was. It could have been a million reasons. Maybe there's thematic reasons why they open with it. But it is interesting that one of their newer songs follows a modern trend in pop music. Something I don't really see too often in modern metal. Um, so we start off with the chorus, though, which intrigues me. We're going to move on, though. Then we bring it down, we go into the chorus, we go back into we go into we bring it down, go into the verse. We go back into the chorus, but we only do that first 8 bars, I think it was. We don't do the second half. Instead, we move into a quick guitar solo, into an unusual 4/4, where the beginning of a bar is actually started a half beat early. The and of 4 is actually where the next note starts. So it feels like it's jumping forward a little bit when we start that next bar. And that's happening underneath the guitar solo, which actually starts out a little choppy as well. We get a held note, and then it feels like we start the run. I think there's like 3 or 4 eighth notes. We started on the and of a beat, and the notes chosen are very unusual. They create a lot of instability mixed with the fact that it's on an offbeat. It sounds rough, and I'm sure that was their intention, because we see a solo later that's just very normally done, naturally written, has a good flow to it, has a very strong sense of stability. This one is the exact opposite of that, and it starts out extremely rough. And like I said, it's intentional. It's done for effect, but it is extremely noticeable right there at the beginning that it's already caught off, and then the floor stuff going underneath it, the foundational work, is also a bit off kilter. I'm not sure what they're trying to say with that section. It is, as far as I can see, very outside the norm. The rest of their stuff is usually fairly stable as far as the time goes, and playing on offbeats and stuff like that, really holding down standard stuff. This one section, though, they really digging into some instability, and then we do another verse, and then we finish out with another solo. So that right there is a bit of an interesting composition. Every other section is a verse. Or let me say it another way. Every even section is a verse, but every odd section, we have 2 choruses and then 2 solos. So definitely not an A, B, C, B idea. More of a... typically we would associate the chorus with being the B section, so it would be B, A, B, A, C, A, C, A, which is... it's very close to the standard modern musical song composition, but it also is its own little twist. So I like that. It catches me off guard. They went and did their own thing here, which, as we checked out yesterday, that's kind of what Mastodon does. They do their own thing. They also play around with time a lot. We had that 6/8 part that we started with the guitar run. The guitar's running, I suppose I should say. Straight eighth notes. Yeah. So that opening part is just a constant run of eighth notes. And then we go into the 4/4 and we bring it down a little bit. And we kind of do this back and forth between like full on drive and then really reining it in a little bit, um, and creating more of an atmospherical section rather than a textural driving section. Now, interestingly, after the first solo, we go back to the verse, which is this kind of acoustic down to earth feeling, but it has the drive of the chorus in it. The drums are playing twice as fast as they were. The guitars have a faster run rather than some of the slower stuff they were doing. And it's a completely different atmosphere and feel from the other times we had seen in this section. So, again, I'm not sure how this fits in with the lyrical themes, but it is interesting to see this idea of duality and then combining. Maybe like two sides of the same coin idea where we get the full coin at the end before going into the final solo, which again embraces these same ideas of being a bit more subdued and down to earth, but still having that drive of the opening section. So, yeah, this is a really cool song. It's very strange though, compared to yesterday's Mastodon track Mother Puncher. This is yesterday I mentioned that one of the reasons that I hadn't heard Mastodon up to this point is because at the time that that song came out, I was mostly listening to the radio. I was relying on the radio to provide me new music. Mastodon was not radio friendly. But this song I have compared directly to two huge radio rock bands. Well, I don't know if Shinedown's huge anymore. They were at one point, though. And Seether. Shinedown and Seether. Um, I could see this being played on a radio. This is a massive departure for them. Assuming Mother Puncher is indicative of their old work and this is indicative of their new work. For all I know, they are still just as heavy, and this is a song that their record requested so that they could have a radio song. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances of how or why these songs are written. I'm looking at them within a vacuum of them existing by themselves with no context. It is one of the pros and cons, for better or worse, of this reaction format. But let's look at some things that are similar and different here. Obviously, on the surface, the songs have very different feels. One is metal, one is hard rock at best. But there's actually still a lot of similarities here. Time signature changes, tempo changes, constantly all over the place. This is something we checked out yesterday. They have this affinity for 6/8 and 4/4. They appear in both songs. They go back and forth. Harsh transitions between them are something that appears in both of them. Tempo shifts along with time signature shifts to create drastically different feels on a dime. No transitions, bar to bar. 1 minute we're doing 6/8 at full speed. The next we're doing 4/4 at 60% of that speed. Um, this is something that we saw with yesterday's Mother Puncher as well. They also had a 3/4 section that I don't think showed up here, but still that affinity for changing and messing around with and playing around with time and tempo and overall speed of a section is still here. That's definitely I would say, a core part of Mastodon. Now, yesterday I also said that a core part of Mastodon was... Where was I going with that? I don't remember. That's a shame. Another thing that's continued on through here, though, as well, is the eclectic song composition. Yesterday, the song composition was very odd in that it was heavily weighted to the intro. We had this extended intro for a short song, which left not a lot of room for the meat of the song to take up, and they felt like they really had to run through it quick. We were rushing through sections. I don't even remember if there was any strong pattern to it. A lot of it felt very different. We were in the sludge section 1 minute, then a rushing section in the next, and then something in the middle of the next. I don't think we had any repeated sections. It was more like an A, which is that super long intro, and then B, C, D, E, F, done. Because they ended like right on a stop. It wasn't even like they had an outro. Whereas here we have that repeated structure. Again, like I stated earlier, assuming that the opening was a chorus, we're going to assign it to B. We have an A, we have a B A B A C A C A. So it is unusual. But also contrast a bit, it follows a repeating pattern, whereas yesterday's track seemed to have no repetition. However, not adhering to a standard verse chorus idea, again, seems to be very core to Mastodon's writing. Vocals are a huge change. This one is very, like I said, personal. There's vulnerability, there's passion in the singing style. Um, I would even say maybe even a little bit of soul in the vocals, whereas yesterday it was just growl all the time. I couldn't even pick out any words. The growl was so overbearing with distortion and power. There wasn't a lot of strong enunciation. Here, though, we get some really strong, clear singing. So much so that I even deemed a section a chorus because I realized that a few of the words are repeated, a few of the lines are repeated throughout them. The mix is something that also has drastically changed. Yesterday really went with a raw, gritty mix. I don't know if that was a choice or if that's just what they could afford at the time. Maybe that's as much experience as their engineer had. Like I said yesterday, I'm not sure if that was their first album, and maybe it was self-produced. Maybe that was maybe they could only afford an inexperienced engineer. Who knows? But this one definitely shows that they have an engineer who is very uh, an engineer who's good at their job, and goes for a specific sound. And this sound is very clean. It's very different from yesterday's gritty mix of really compressing things down into textures rather than letting the tones themselves speak. Here we have a lot of very clear, expressive tones rather than yesterday's harsh, distorted sounds. It is just almost a 180. Very, very huge difference. Very similar to Opeth's, actually, where we had an extremely harsh, rough first song and then a much more palatable second song that follows a few more conventional standards. So it is interesting to see many of these older metal bands who may have created or helped popularize these harsher tones and sounds back in the late 90s, early 2000s, going for softer sounds here and really pushing maybe their compositional skills. It might have something to do with them just getting older. I mean, we're talking, at least this one is just shy of 20 years. Maybe closer to 15, 16 years between Mother Puncher and Toe to Toes. That is a long time for people to grow, and also for bodies to change. This sound could be a result of not being able to produce those harsh sounds in the fast playing anymore. Well, actually, the fast playing is still here, but the harsh sounds with the vocals, maybe they were just out of practice. Bands can take time off. You take a lot of time off, you don't practice, you got to get your vocal cords back into shape. If, guitarists and drummers got to get their muscles back into shape, especially for some of this faster playing. Not that Mastodon and Opeth are doing any of the crazy speed stuff we've seen before, but I mean, even taking 6 months off from being in a band can really put you behind, and you really got to work back up to where you were. And as bodies get older, that gets harder and harder to do. So again, I don't know any of the circumstances of these bands. Maybe they took time off. Maybe they're just getting older. Who knows? But I do think it's interesting that two bands from roughly the same era, playing very similar music, both decided to eventually, around the same time, go for a softer, more down to earth feel to their music. So yeah, that's I'm interested in the rest of this week. We got Judas Priest coming up next. I don't remember who our fourth and fifth bands were, but Judas Priest is going to be another much older band that's still around playing stuff today. There's going to be a large time gap between their earlier and newer stuff. And I'm wondering if they're going to follow a very similar pattern of really bringing their music down a bit and going for more subtle, nuanced things rather than the really drastic, harsh, in-your-face writing. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Mastodon's Toe to Toes and how it relates to Mother Puncher in a compositional sense. This is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this track or not, anything that stuck out to you that maybe I didn't talk about. You can post those comments there. Above that is a description box with a link to Linktree, which is a nifty place. It's a nice little menu with everything adjacent to the channel. If you want to check out the Twitter, join the Discord community, support the channel through Patreon. All three of those things are in the Linktree link, as well as a bevy of other things. Above that, you can like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with the aforementioned Judas Priest reaction. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.